Hi, in this Unity tutorial, we will be learning how to make a simple sprite cutout tool. Let's take a look at our cutout tool script. We start with some public variables, grouped by headers for clarity. Under input, we've got three input actions, one to toggle cutout mode, one for mouse clicks, and one for tracking the mouse pointer's position. In references, we'll link a camera, a line renderer to draw the cutout shape, and a texture for the scissors cursor. Settings has a distance threshold. It controls how close points need to be to each other before we consider adding them to the shape. Another state, we have a reference to the target sprite renderer we're cutting out, whether the cutout mode is active or not, and a list of points making up the cutout shape. When our cutout tool mono behavior is enabled in Unity, the script enables the input actions and sets up event listeners for when the toggle button is pressed. When the object is disabled, it disables the input actions and removes any action listeners. The start cutout method runs when we toggle the tool on. It changes the mouse cursor to a scissors icon, turns on the cutout mode, clears the old shape, and disables any existing mask on the targeted sprite. It also changes the toggle button's action, so the next time you press it, it will run end cutout instead. If we are in cutout mode and the toggle button is pressed again, end cutout is now called. It resets the cursor, creates the mask from the shape you drew, and switches the button's action back to start cutout. This way, the button cleanly toggles between starting and ending the cutout process, resetting the whole thing every time. In the update method, we first check if cutout mode is active. If not, the method exits early. If it is active, we then check if the left mouse button is being held down. If it is being held down, we grab the mouse pointer's screen space position, convert it to world space, and call the addPointToShape method with those coordinates. Lastly, we update the line renderer to correctly display the drawn shape. The addPointToShape method checks the distance between the new point and the last point added. If it's too close, it skips adding it. This keeps the shape cleaner and prevents unnecessary extra points. When the user finishes drawing the shape, create cutout is called. First, it makes sure there are at least 3 points, as that is the minimum required to define a closed surface. Then, it creates a new transparent texture to act as a mask the same size as the target sprite. For each pixel in the mask, it checks whether that pixel's world position falls inside the shape you drew using the point and polygon method. If it does, it sets the pixel to black. Once done, it creates a new sprite from this texture, assigns it to a sprite mask, and sets the target sprite's mask interaction to only show areas inside of the mask. Lastly, we have two helper methods, pixel to world position and point and polygon. Pixel to world position converts a pixel coordinate from the mask texture to a world position, taking the sprite's position, scale, and rotation into account. Point and polygon is a standard raycasting algorithm that determines whether a point is inside of a polygon by counting how many times a horizontal ray from the point crosses the shape's edges. Now that we have seen our code, let's go into Unity and see how we can set it up in the inspector. In Unity, we have our cutout tool added as a script to a game object in the scene. We have a target sprite, which has a sprite renderer, and we have a random attached sprite to it. And in our cutout tool, we can see that we have our inputs. This has been configured to be the space key on the keyboard. This is the left mouse button, and this is the pointer position. In our references, we reference our camera in the scene. We reference a line renderer that we have also added as a component here. You are free to style this however you like. And we have our scissors tool, which will allow us to change the cursor so the user knows they're in cutout mode. This is our distance threshold. I've made it a simple slider just so we can have a little bit of an easier time adjusting the values. And over here in the state, we have our target, which is pointing to the sprite renderer on the target sprite. We have the cutout mode boolean here, and we have the cutout shape. So let's see what happens when we click play. Now when the game is started, we can see that nothing happens if I click around, but if I hit space, our cursor has changed to this scissors tool, and if we hold the mouse button down, you can see that we're drawing this little shape. Let's get the tree out. And now if we click space again, the tree is going to be cut out. Now let's increase the distance threshold to something massive, like 1.0. Let's get space again and see how that works. Now when I'm in cutout mode again, I can start dragging. But you can see the line is very rough, and there's very few points being added. And if I click space now, This is the cutout. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from this Unity tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I hope you have a nice day. Bye bye.